Hello and welcome to week 2. My name is Mildred. This week we are going to look at how to use the navigation bar in Bootstrap. Last week we looked at how we could include Bootstrap from a content delivery network, and we looked at the basic of Bootstrap. We said that in the body area we have to have a div element with a class of container or container fluid for us to start using Bootstrap within the container. Now we want to look at nav bars, nav tabs and pills in this lesson, and we're going to start with a navigation bar. A navigation bar is like a responsive header component that we use to display a website logo or brand. We use that to have navigation links, drop-down menus, search bars, buttons, or collapsible mobile menus for responsiveness. And Bootstrap 5 will provide us with these classes that we can use to build navbar quickly, and also we can have a responsive navbar. So for us to create a navigation bar, just as we use in HTML, we use the nav element. This does not create a navigation bar, but we're going to use this to create a navigation bar. So the class we want to add here will have a class of navbar. So when we use a class of navbar, we're going to have a navigation bar. Now, because we want this to be responsive, we need to add navbar expand, and then we'll add either we want to add LG, and it is going to resize, grow or shrink from there, and we will put a button that makes it responsive. So this navbar expand will expand on large screen and will collapse on smaller screens like that. So you use large like this, or we have small, we have medium, and all of that. So refer to your lesson resource to see the different values you can use for navbar expand. Then we can put the theme, or whether we want the navigation bar to be light or dark. We use navbar, so we use dark or light to control the link and the icon colors. So let's say we want it to be dark, for instance, and then we control the background with BG. You can use BG light or BG dark, or different background colors that we looked at in last week's lesson, where you can use info, primary, and all of that. So let's say we want BG, let's say info, for instance. So we want the background info like that. So this is like the basic of a navigation bar. So these are the classes that you add in basic form to a nav element. Now within this element we can now have a container div class equal to container, and then we close div. Now it is within this container that we are going to add all of the remaining things for the navigation. When we go to our web page and we look, we have that bar, but we have nothing there, and see the color that we chose. So in the event I change this color to BG dark, we will have a black background, and so when I refresh, it is black. Now within the container I want to have, let's say, an anchor tag here, and for this anchor tag I want to use this to add a logo. To add a logo, you want to have a class of navbar brand. So put navbar brand like this, and let's say we want this to link nowhere. If you have a link where you want this to go, you put the link there in the href attributes, and let's say I just want to write something like this here, and I'll close this link. Now when I refresh the page, you will see that we have that brand or logo or whatever it is that we put there. So whenever we use navbar brand, it's just like for the branding text or the branding logo. Now we can use a button. So like if we resize this, let's say we want to make it smaller, so be like you see it's small. So if we have a navigation element, it will go above and we'll have horizontal scroll bar, but we want this to be responsive, and so for that we use button. We do that just after this logo or the branding. So we'll create a button, and we're going to look at button in the coming weeks, but let's just create this button for responsiveness. So what we want to do is for it to collapse for smaller screen. So if someone is using a mobile device, you want this button to kick in and to collapse. So for the button we have a class of toggler. So anytime you want to have a responsive navigation, we commonly use button, and then with the class will be navbar and then toggler, right? And then you put the type will be equal to button, and then we want to use the collapse value for the data. Yes, toggle is equal to collapse, and then the target is going to use an ID attribute for us to know what collapse is, right? So we'll say data target is equal to, so we'll use the hash, and let's call this main nav, and I'll show you where this comes useful. Now the area controls, and I'll tell you what this means as we go along. Let's do area expanded. We'll first say area controls is equal to main nav, and then area expanded is equal to, let's say, false, and the label is toggle navigation. So once we do this, we have our button button that is going to be like a hamburger mark that will appear and collapse all of the links in the navigation bar once our screen size is small. Now we want to have like a span, just an empty text container, let's say span, so that we can use this to put the icon. So we'll say span class. To get that icon, we use the class Navbar toggler. Like, so all of this comes with Bootstrap. So some of this you just need to know what you need to use. Your lesson resource explains each of all of these values for you to know what they mean. So this collapse and Navbar collapse is for the collapsible navigation area, alright, and the Navbar toggler is like the hamburger menu that will have. When we refresh this page, we won't see anything, but when we resize to make it like almost like a mobile device, we see this hamburger menu that we can use. So this will always only work when you have the Bootstrap JS, so that's why I always use the CSS and the JavaScript here together. Okay, so we can see how this collapses once the screen size reaches a particular size. Now let's say we want to add the navigation items. So after this button, I'll create a div class. Let's create a new div. So we always use a div for container. If you have not taken the HTML fundamental course, you want to take the course so you can understand this. So now for this div class, we want this to be boot class is equal to, now we'll say collapse. The reason we are doing this is that we want this button to target this using JavaScript, because here we are going to add the ID attribute. For instance, I'll put the ID is equal to, the ID must match this name. So this is main nav, so ID is equal to main nav, like that. So you want it to match that. So when we say div class is equal to collapse, we want to add the other attributes, the other class, and it's going to be navbar collapse, and then we have the ID. So this button will target everything within this div. That means all the navigation will be within this div. Now we create navigation items with the unordered list UL, and we can actually add classes here that will remove the default list markers for unordered list. Now when we use Bootstrap, we only need to use a class and then the value of navbar. So we have navbar nav, and then we have, let's say, margin end auto, and we have margin bottom to be 2 and margin bottom for that 0. So all of this we did last week when we look at the different properties that we have, or the different values that we use for text and for typology, etc. So you might want to read and understand each of these and how they present, or play around with them. I won't go into that detail here. So when we have an unordered list, we want to have a list item like this. So when you're using Bootstrap and you have a list item tag, what will happen here is that, sorry, I have to close this. You have to have an anchor tag here, and each of these will have a class. First of all, this item must have a class of nav item. So we'll have a class here is equal to nav item, alright, and the anchor tag now will come between the start and end list item tag, and it must have a class for nav link. So you put nav link like this. If this is the first one, you want it to be highlighted, you can use the active attribute here like this, okay, or the class active class like this. And then let's say href here, let it lead nowhere. So we'll say href is equal to this, and then we want to put this to be home. So when we come to our page and we refresh, we can see home here. Alright, we can do the same thing to have other menus. Let's add other menus here. So we have home. I'm going to copy this. So let's say we want to have, this will not be active, I'll just remove this. This will not be active, I'll remove this. So let's say we want to have, the next one will be about, and let's say we want to have services, something like this. When we refresh our page, we see this. But when we collapse and it reaches like a medium to small screen size, it brings this hamburger that we can expand to see the list. So this is how we get a responsive one, so it stacks upon themselves. Alright, so we are going to see how we can add it like a search bar above this. So when we close our unordered list, we use the list item to have all of the navigation item, but we want to have a form on this same navigation bar, and this form is going to be like a search button. So let's say form class is equal to, so the value you add here is, now we're going to look at next week, we're going to look at the flex and the grid system, and then you understand this. But let's use dflex, and then we're going to have the role will be equal to search like this, and then we'll close form. Now within the start and end form tag, we can now put our input field. So this is going to be like a search bar, so the type will be equal to search, and then we want to have the class to be equal to form control, and we'll have me2. Then we want to have a placeholder. Let's have a placeholder, and let our placeholder be search, something like that, right? And then let's have a button that the user will click for the search to happen. So we say button class equal to btn outline success, like this. So we want it to have a green button. So you will look at, when we look at buttons, you will understand this class. For now, just follow what I'm doing and you understand this better as we go deeper. I will come back to explain all of what we have here. So the type is submit and we want it to search. So you use your JavaScript, or you're going to use whatever processing language you want to use to make this search happen. And so this is like in its basic form how we create a navigation bar. And so we can see that we have this search here and we can easily search for anything within this. Alright, so when we resize to like a font size, we have it, the hamburger, and when we expand, we have that. So in summary, we have looked at the navigation bar, we have looked at all the classes that we use in Bootstrap 5 and all of those values and what they mean. Your lesson resource gives you deeper details of the meanings of all of this. And in the next lesson, we are going to look at how we can have a navigation bar with drop down menu. Thank you and see you in the next lesson.